Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Michaela and in today's video I'm here to do my June wrap-up. So in an attempt to make my wrap-up videos shorter, I am going to be splitting my June wrap-up into two separate videos. So in this video, I'm going to be discussing only the very best books I read in June, and I will be discussing the most disappointing books I read in June in a separate video. June was actually a pretty good reading month. I found two new favorites of the year, and I had quite a few 5-star books that I did genuinely enjoy, which I'm so happy about because I know I've been talking a lot on my channel lately about not reading books that I've been liking. So I am super happy that June has had a little bit of turnaround, and I feel like July is going to be even better. So let's go ahead and get right into the 4- and 5-star books that I read in June. Starting with The Secrets of Heartwood Hall by 𝚆𝙸𝚃𝙷. In this book, we are following a governess who gets a new job at a very old estate that has a lot of rumors of hauntings and lots of weird things that go on at this old manor. It's a typical gothic setting with lots of mystery going on, which I really enjoyed. Reading this book, honestly, I did not have a ton of opinions on either way, like positive or negative. What I really enjoyed about this book, and I think why it was a 4 and not a 3-star for me, is because there was a very good double plot twist at the end, which was really fun. There is a romance subplot in this book that starts to take a very strong presence in the story. Especially in the second half of this book, there was a certain point where almost every other chapter was the story focusing on the romance between these two characters, and that wasn't for me. That was losing my interest. Also, random tidbit, but there was a lot more church religion content than I was expecting in a gothic mystery book. I mean, it wasn't very off-putting to me, but I would say I wasn't expecting it. There's this whole aspect of the governess taking the child that she's watching to church and the mom not wanting that to happen, and I just wasn't expecting all that commentary on going to church in this book. So overall, I feel like this is one of the better cozy gothic mysteries I've read lately. So if you guys like that sort of vibe, I do think that this one is worth your time. Also, there is a sapphic element to this, which I really enjoyed. So if you like that too, I would also recommend this book. The next 4-star book I read in June was My Year of Rest and Relaxation by 𝚆𝙾𝙃𝚃𝙷. Now, I have a very hard time rating any of 𝚆𝙾𝙃𝚃𝙷's books. I have another one I'm going to speak about in this video, and I have since read 𝚲𝚃. And I don't know what to think about her books. I really feel like this author tries to break the mold, tell a different story, and write about truly unlikable characters. That's why I don't know how to rate her books, because a lot of times it's not an enjoyable experience reading the book. However, I am hooked, I am engrossed, I am captivated, and for that reason, I feel like she should score some points, you know? I did appreciate the originality of the narrative. So in My Year of Rest and Relaxation, we are following a rich, gorgeous woman who does not have to work or worry about a thing in her life. But this character is extremely depressed. She's extremely apathetic towards the outside world. The way that she deals with her apathy and her depression is to take an insane amount of prescription medications, and she makes it her life goal to do nothing but sleep. This is the kind of book where nothing is happening, okay? And I do find something about 𝚆𝙃𝚃𝚃𝙷's writing to be very compelling. Although nothing is happening, I find that she's able to keep my interest. Something I did also find about the main character of this book that I thought was very interesting is while she is very apathetic, and I can see why many people do not like this book. I thought going into this book that I would not like it because the vibe of the main character is not something that I want to have sympathy for. Like I said, she is very rich. She describes herself as gorgeous and better looking than any of the other women around her. So, why do I need to feel sympathy for this woman? She has everything. She has money, she has privilege, she has influence. And I don't know if 𝚘𝚃 was trying to get us to have empathy for this character, or if her goal when she writes is simply to write about unlikable women characters. Something that I found interesting about this character is, while she is apathetic, okay, I feel like she has substance. So I think it's a very hard thing to write about a very apathetic character. So any of you out there who may have read Catherine House, that was a book that I went into thinking I would really love Catherine House. However, I did not like the main character of that book at all. Maybe it's the difference of that one being YA and this one being adult. Something about the main character of 𝚘𝚃's book is it felt like she had substance. While you did not like her, you could still get a picture of her. And that was the difference of what I felt like the main character of Catherine House was, is she was very flat and boring. I felt like she had no personality at all. Whereas this character, she's not boring, okay? None of 𝚘𝚃's characters are boring. They may be very unlikable, but they have a body to them. Like, you can get a vivid picture of them, which I need, to hook my interest. I need that. That is something I kind of struggled, was figure out what was the point of this book. Did she have a point? Was her point just writing an unlikable female character, okay? And that is a point unto itself. Or is it the exhaustion of life? Because honestly, I could kind of understand her desire to sleep. And she thinks, I'm gonna sleep for all this time, and when I wake up at the end of it, I'm gonna be recharged and ready to go out into the world. And I can kind of understand that desire to do nothing but sleep. Sometimes life is so exhausting. I feel like there are so many directions that this book could go in. Honestly, I think this could make a good book club book, because I want to discuss, like, what was the point of this book, The ending and the last sentence, I was really moved by that, and that last sentence really just was very impactful, I thought. Overall, I can see why this is a polarizing book. I can see why people love it. I can see why people hate it. Out of the 3 𝚘𝚃 Moshfegh books I have read, I have had the same exact thought when I've gotten to the end, which is, what did I just read and how do I feel about it? I don't know how to feel about it. I liked it. I liked the originality of it, and yeah, we'll just leave it at that. The next 4-star book I had in June was A Certain Hunger by Chelsea G. Summers. This book was a buddy read. I read this book with Maddie from As Told by Maddie and Mary from Books with Tofukado. So if you guys have not already checked out Maddie and Mary's channels, please go ahead and check out their videos. We all had very different thoughts on this book, and I loved buddy reading it with them because they gave me a whole new perspective on this book. In A Certain Hunger, we are following a food critic who is a psychopath, okay? She is a unapologetic psychopath cannibal who likes to kill men. I don't think I went into this book with the right mindset. If you're going to read A Certain Hunger, you have to know that you're going to be reading about a completely irredeemable and unlikable psychopath, okay? And what makes this a feminist book is how it shows that women can do everything a man can do, including being a ruthless serial killer. This touches on what I spoke about with the 𝚘𝚃 Moshfegh book, that I almost feel like the entire point of this book was to write about an unlikable female protagonist. And that was the point. I think it is important representation to portray women in these sorts of roles that are unlikable, distasteful, problematic. I really did not like this main character at all. I felt like she had no depth. Like, she is killing people and eating them. There's never a dialogue around why she wants to do this. There's no, backstory into where these urges came from. She just does it and doesn't give a care about it. I wanted more. I wanted more discussion on why is she like this. After speaking about this book though, and getting a new perspective on it, I do feel like it's important to show women in different roles than just nurturing mothers. And I almost feel like when we see men in these types of roles as these type of characters, we don't question it as much. It's almost acceptable for a male to be a serial killer. There's a point in the Goodreads synopsis that says this is a critique of how gender is defined. How is this a critique of how gender is defined? What makes this book feminist is how it shows that women can do everything a man can do, including being a ruthless serial killer. So I do want to say there are a lot of trigger warnings in this book. There's a lot of content thrown into this book that for me felt like it was purely for shock value, and I did get a little bit bored of the like repetitive sex on page because it felt like a lot of that and a lot of the specific language used was used just for shock value, and that did get a little bit boring to me, a little repetitive. So that's why I'm saying I don't think I really enjoyed my reading experience, but after finishing the book, I do feel like there is a value and a point to it, so that is why I gave it 4 stars. Moving on to my 4 5-star books I read in June. The first one I'm going to speak about is Period, The Real Story of Menstruation by Kate Clancy. I really enjoyed this book for learning more about periods, and I'm really trying to read more nonfiction books around women's studies. So basically, this is a nonfiction book that focuses on the science and cultural history of menstruation. I did really appreciate how it challenges the way that we think about periods in our culture and society. I loved how it used a lot of very specific examples to illustrate the crazy misconceptions around menstruation that exist and are used to exclude and control women and their bodies. I like how it touched on and explained the prevailing beliefs around the world that menstruation is dirty and how, like I said, that's used to exclude and control women. Everything in this book is science and very research based. That was something I really loved, as how well researched this book was. I did feel though that some of the science did go over my head a little bit. There's a lot of intense jargon, used in this book, and that lost my interest a little bit, but this was still a 5 for me. I thought it was an excellent, inclusive nonfiction book around women's issues. This one reminded me why I love reading nonfiction, why it is fun and rewarding to me. It was a goal of mine to pick up more nonfiction women's studies books, and this was the only one that I picked up, and it reminded me, like I just said, why I want to read more, why I love reading them. So hopefully I will have more to talk about in the future. The next 5-star book I have to talk about is The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. I was so impressed reading this, and after I finished it, I just wanted more books like this. I was so enchanted by the vibes of this one while reading. It's so dreamy. I don't know how to explain it other than the way that it is written is so dreamy and charming. I loved the main character Eleanor and Theo's friendship in this book. I think that's something also that particularly spoke to me about this book, because I do enjoy and love so much reading about female friendships. Right away when these two characters, Eleanor and Theo, meet each other, they are like connected in like 2 peas in a pod. There's like this instant bond between them that I just connected to. It's so sweet to me, and I felt like I was a part of their friendship with them, and I loved that aspect. As the book goes on, you do see their friendship start to dissolve a bit. You see mistrust, coming between them, and obviously it has to do with the house and what's going on in the house, but I just found it fascinating. I also laughed out loud multiple times reading this book, which once again, I'm gonna say this is a classic, but the fact that I could laugh out loud at something that was published in 1959 is truly a testament to Shirley Jackson's writing and how timeless it is. 10 out of 10, could not recommend this one more. The next 5-star book to talk about is My Murder by Katie Williams. This one I initially had at a 4-star rating. However, Because I could not stop thinking about this book, I decided to bump up my rating to a 5 stars, which I very rarely raise my ratings. A lot of times I will go in and lower ratings. Just because of how much this book and this story sticks with you, I felt like it had to be a 5 star. So this one has a very interesting and different synopsis. I did just upload a video about thrillers that break the mold. It is one that I do genuinely think breaks the mold. It's so different, okay? It's original. And especially if you like thrillers or books in general with like a sci-fi element to it, I really think that you will enjoy My Murder. So in the world of this book, through scientific advances, people can now be brought back to life after they were murdered. The main character, after being brought back to life, then begins to investigate her own murder. I just felt like that was such a cool premise about having a character investigating their own murder. It also reminded me a lot of my favorite Grady Hendrix book, The Final Girls Support Group. I felt like there was a lot of commentary in this book on the world's obsession with serial killers over the victims. The way that women are treated in the media, especially when they are victims. I just loved and deeply appreciated, connected to the commentary in this book. Oh my God, the writing in this. There are chapters of this book that read like pure poetry. This is one that I want to buy a physical copy of. I want to reread it and I want to annotate it. I really, really, really genuinely can recommend you guys this thriller. I think it is worth your time. I think the commentary is excellent and relevant, like I said. I want to rave about it. Okay, but let's move on. The last book I want to speak about in this video is Death in Her Hands by 𝚆𝙃𝚃. This is another one that I have no idea how to speak about, okay? I just know how it made me feel. And that is why it is a 5-star book, and that is why it is one of my favorite books of 2023. We are following an older female protagonist in this book who one day while she is walking her dog through the woods, she finds a note, a handwritten note in the woods. And on that note, it says, "Her name was Magda. Nobody will ever know who killed her. It wasn't me. Here is her dead body." When the main character finds this note and reads it, she goes on a journey, okay? Her imagination runs wild. She is quite an unhinged narrator, which I found so fascinating to read about. Like I just said about the other 𝚆𝚃 book I read this month, she loves writing about very unhinged and unlikable female protagonists, which I love reading about. This book was so weird, but it was one that completely hooked me. It has such an odd narrative style, and I really love that when books are told in very odd and different ways, that is something that keeps my interest. When you're telling a book in a way that's different that I haven't already read about before. The main character, Vesta, the older woman who finds that note in the woods, she goes on all of these tangents in her mind. It's almost like a stream of consciousness. And it was such an odd book, an odd story that I was reading, but I just thought it was so interesting because I could honestly see like this little old lady with her dog, okay, reacting in just this way and carry on like this inner monologue, you know? I do want to say there was a lot of fat phobia in this, which I honestly did not think was necessary, but it's a theme I'm seeing coming up in 𝚆𝚃's books where she seems to put these things in for shock value. But I do want to say I did not think that that was a totally unsurprising characterization of a very old white woman who has traditionally patriarchal values. It didn't seem unsurprising that she would have these thoughts. This is another one like My Year of Rest and Relaxation, where almost nothing happens the entire book, but it's so interesting. There is something so special about the way this book is written. There is a rhythm, there is a pace. The rhythm and the pace of the writing and the character's stream of consciousness is punctuated by the first line of that note that she finds. Her name was Magda. It's methodical. It reads like chanting, okay? It's like I said, there's like a rhythm to this book. Also, oh my God, if you guys have not read this and you're interested in it, I want to like highly, highly, highly recommend the audiobook. The audio narrator was fantastic. That woman deserves an award. She did such a good job. I feel like that was like half the reason why I was so hooked by this. I do want to say, I feel like this is a book for a very niche audience. So a lot of you guys, if you pick this book up, I can see why a lot of people are not gonna like this. It is very confusing. It almost has no point. But I personally love that because it's the kind of book that makes you think. It's not paint by numbers or laid out neatly or evident from chapter 1 what's going on or what's to come. It keeps you guessing and it keeps you wondering after the last page. While nothing happens the entire book, it could not have been more impactful. This is one that I would love to discuss with people, like trying to dissect what did it mean? What did I just read? You know, I need to discuss this one with somebody because I have so many thoughts, but that's all I'm gonna go into in this video. Like I said in the intro, I will have another separate video talking about my most disappointing, worst books that I read in June. I have been feeling lately a little bit guilty, okay, on my channel because I feel like I've been a little bit harsh and negative in a lot of videos recently. And okay, personally, I do love watching like rant reviews. I like watching videos where people don't shy away from what they did not like about books. However, I have been almost leaning into that a little bit too much, and I feel like a lot of people maybe don't like that negative aspect. So I thought maybe splitting up my June wrap-ups might be helpful for some people who don't want that negativity. If you don't want to watch the like worst, most disappointing video, then hey, you can just watch like the best of the month and you can just totally avoid that video and some of those, you know, harsher thoughts. That's all I have to talk about in this video. What was your best book that you read in June? I'd be super interested to know if you would leave me a comment down below. But other than that, thank you guys so much for watching and I will see you in my next video.